Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
And I'm Chris Clements.
It feels like either more stuff is happening or I'm just paying closer attention to the world because I just feel like we've just got so much to cover today.
Well, you know what's so interesting is that last week you did a tremendous job with our guest.
Oh, thank you.
And flying solo because
it's very nice of you.
I was incredibly ill, could barely speak, and found the end of the internet. I think
you
last
did.
Week. I must have. I read everything.
You were completely educated.
I don't know how educated I am, but I certainly read about as much as I can read
informed.
when you're sitting there on your couch doing nothing, wishing you were with your podcast partner.
Yeah.
You know, interviewing Rich Tao, which, by the way, I mean, crazy stuff, good stuff.
I'm telling you, this next few months are going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't even, so now that we're talking about it, I don't know really where to start, but maybe we start with presidential.
Well, I mean, that's what I thought we would start with because we were talking about it before we got on air. And Rich really had some great insights in just on the Arizona side.
Yeah.
Of how divided people really are. And the most startling thing that he mentioned was how well a guy named Kennedy is doing within the within the Bali politic.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I talked about with him was, wow, my shirt is very bright. If you're watching the video of this is
I don't know if it's that orange. That's why black is always
it's
good.
red, but
Very
it comes
thinning.
across as orange. I don't know. It's like I'm deer hunting or something.
Yes, deer hunting.
So the Robert Kennedy Jr. factor is going to be very interesting to watch because he has to get on the ballot in various states.
Well, they're saying that now they're planning for the debates, and there's going to be a certain threshold, I believe, if Trump and Biden decide to go along in debate, which is questionable.
I think it's highly, highly unlikely.
Yeah, really unlikely. But that RFK Jr. could qualify.
Yeah,
based on his polling.
Perot did back in '92.
I think it's a 15% threshold. That's what they use for Perot.
I think so.
Yeah, and so then Biden's going to absolutely run the campaign from the bowling alley of the White House.
Yeah. The factors here that I think are important to think about, and we talked a little bit about this with Rich Tao, but for me, the thing that's now become more and more evident as we watch what's happening in Israel, and we see the pro-Hamas movement here in the United States, which is just astounding, remains astounding. I don't know.
And it's funded.
Yeah. Oh, it's organized and funded.
Yeah.
And
by a secular Jew named George Soros.
Is he Jewish?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
But you can't say that because that'd be anti-Semitic.
Oh, okay. Well,
don't use his secular Jewry to claim that he's Jewish. That would be anti-Semitic.
The chaos that's going to create or potentially create if Cornell West, because he's very much anti-Israel and he's kind of pro-Hamas, there's a place for these people to go. And there's reports now that young Hispanics are joining the cause of Palestine, the Palestinian liberation, whatever you want to call it. And then, so you have, obviously Muslims and the Arab folks in the United States, who are, of Arab descent, who, all the polling shows that, and that they're outspoken against Biden because they don't like the way that he's handled this. So you look at Michigan, had large population in Michigan, decent population in Georgia, decent population here in Arizona. These states were won or lost by very thin margins. Yeah. So Cornell West gets on the ballot in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and pulls an anti-Israel cohort out of the Biden coalition. It only takes a point or two to make a difference on this election. And so as we look at the landscape looking forward, it's becoming potentially more and more Trump's to lose rather than Biden's to lose, which everyone assumes the presidency with the incumbency, it's very challenging to take out an incumbent. Incumbents rarely lose. And last time an incumbent lost was Trump.
Well,
and before that, it was George H.W. Bush.
Well, and there's so many different factors playing against Biden right now. I mean, first of all, is his misreading of how people are being affected by the economy, by inflation. I mean, all this different information that the White House tried to punch out during the Thanksgiving holiday about, hey, inflation is down, but no, you're still paying 17% more than you were before Biden was elected.
Yeah,
it's 17 to like 25% on everything.
Yeah,
even though we've made a small little dip in inflation in terms of growth.
Well, that's where
the spin is.
Issue. There
that's
lies
where
the
the
issue.
spin
This is just like spending. If it's projected spending and you pull back a little bit on the projection, it's a cut in spending.
Yeah.
So now it's not on this inflation. If there's a little dip in the increase, the rate of the increase, inflation's down. But
is
you know
decreasing.
what? The prices are just as bad as they were last year.
Well, and what we've said on the show many times, what all economists will say is that inflation is just another tax on the working class. And so you have basically a 17 to 25% tax cumulatively over the last 3 years on the working class. Things are not affordable. Just basic necessities people are having a hard time with. And this administration doesn't get it.
Well,
they spin it every which way.
And the mainstream media goes
blame
along with it.
They are still blaming Trump.
Yeah.
Which is unbelievable.
The mainstream media goes along with it, and they write stories about how people are complaining. Things are better, but they're still complaining. I mean, this whole Washington Post, they had not an editorial, it was a front page story about how people are, the complaining about the economy, even though the economy is doing great, is going viral. And it was about the $16 McDonald's, meal.
Yeah. That's a real cost.
Yeah.
That's a real cost because guess what? Wages haven't decreased last time I checked. And so the making of that little hamburger and the fries and the Coke and everything else, that has all gone up.
Yeah.
It's all gone up. So your $5 Happy Meal is now $10.
But the American people need to understand that Biden has done so much. Why don't they recognize it? Chris, why are people complaining?
Because all he's done is open the floodgates of spending to a way that's completely unsustainable. So I mean, we're approaching a financial cliff, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
And nobody really wants to talk about what you have to do to avoid that cliff. Nobody wants to talk about that Social Security is going to be insolvent in about 8 years.
Well, so this is a good segue into the next piece of
and you can tell I've been
puzzle.
talking to our good friend David Schweiker.
Yes, you have.
I did the other day, and he asked me, "Are you getting my debt counter text?" I go, "Yes, sir, I am."
Yes,
every day.
So there is one person. I mean, there's more than one, but there is a national profile person, Nikki Haley, who has talked about the need to do some reform on the mandatory spending, and it just so happens that there was big news earlier this week.
Big news.
The Koch network, AFP Action, Americans for Prosperity Action, has endorsed Nikki Haley for president.
Yeah, swinging for the fences.
Yeah,
I think we posted.
They had decided that they were going to work against Trump's nomination, and I think there was a lot of speculation that they were going to go with DeSantis, and they went with Nikki Haley, and I think that speaks a lot to. So here's my assessment of that. And I don't know, I don't have any inside information. I saw the news when everyone else did, but here's my assessment.
We haven't talked to Stephen Shadegg about this. We should have him on.
Yeah, we should. Obviously, there's foreign policy issues that differ from where Charles Koch is and others in the Koch world that Nikki supports. But I think let's look at the longer term. So there's probably some recognition that the path for her to defeat Donald Trump for the nomination is very, very narrow and probably not likely.
Yeah.
But a strong showing against Trump puts her in the driver's seat for 4 years from now.
For the next go-round.
And she's talking about things that they care about, and spending being one of them. And, a resurgence of American greatness is another one. And then the other point is that DeSantis has positioned himself, and I think this is where he's gone wrong, is it's just kind of a Trump mini-me. I mean, I am a less chaotic Trump. Well, there's a lot of people who just don't want any kind of Trump.
Yeah.
And so she's the
Well,
non-Trump.
I don't know if he's really distinguished himself in that regard within the debates. He's kind of just been pretty vanilla. And he's actually built a pretty sizable organization within Iowa. He's betting everything he can on Iowa in the hopes that will catapult him throughout the rest of the primaries. The Koch brothers, of course, have a nationwide network of grassroots activists. Very strong in this state, very strong in other states. And it's interesting that Nikki Haley does not have that in place right now. Right. And now she can tap into that in a way that wasn't open to her before.
Right.
And, and she's not betting everything on Iowa. I think she wants to place and do well in Iowa, but I think she's really betting most of her chips on New Hampshire, and she has to win South Carolina.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, I agree. I think she clearly doesn't have to win Iowa. If she did, that would be, I mean, if she wins Iowa, DeSantis should drop out. Period. Right.
Well,
immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately.
But right now he's on this big county tour. He's visited
doing
like
full
90,
Grassley.
Yeah, I mean 97 counties in Iowa, and he's built a formidable organization in Iowa. But again, he's betting everything on Iowa, and as we've seen in presidential elections past, that doesn't always.
Well, an organization is important.
Success.
I agree that organization on the ground is important.
Oh, and he's debating Gavin Newsom tonight on
that's
Fox.
right. That is right.
Which I don't know what that's going to get him, but
yeah, we'll see. We'll have to talk about that next week.
Yeah,
because we won't. It's obviously going to happen after we record now, but before people hear this. So by the time you hear this, it will have happened, so we can talk about it. But there are in the presidential politics, organization, ground game that matters.
Yeah,
but there is the elusive momentum, and Nikki seems to have that right now over DeSantis.
Well, and that's purely based on her swatting down Vivek Ramaswamy.
Part of it. I mean, she's done very well in the debates. Absolutely.
She's done great in the debates, and when you're battling against lower expectations and you exceed those expectations, and on a stage like that, all eyes are upon you.
Yeah.
And the next debate is what, December 6th?
Something like that. December 6th, down December 8th. You're going to do it in
Alabama.
Alabama. So that'll be interesting. So we'll see if the AFP action endorsement moves the needle. I think it's yet to be seen whether that does. I still am of the opinion that it will literally take an act of God to unseat Trump from the nomination.
Do you think that it gives her the ability to really go after Trump in a way that she hasn't before?
Maybe. I mean,
at some point, either one of these candidates really have to. They got to take the gloves off at some point.
Well, yeah.
I mean, just to your point, to be in that second position at the end of the day, they've got to the rest of the electorate that is either skeptical of, the primary electorate that's either skeptical of Trump or wants something to do with Trump, or just traditional conservatives who espouse what Nikki's selling. She's got to do something.
I think to
break through.
Yeah, I think that depends a little bit on whether there's a calculation of whether she's playing for the long term or if she's really going for it. If she doesn't, she's okay with taking this vice presidential slot. If that's the case, she's probably not going to hit Trump.
Yeah,
that hard. But my guess is, if I was advising her, I'd say swing for the fences.
Yeah,
because if he wins, sure, fine, whatever. He's a one-term president.
If that, yeah.
So, yeah.
Him. I know that you think that he has to basically, and I heard this today because Speaker McCarthy was talking about it. He has to not make this a revenge campaign. Well, and he's got to make this campaign aspirational in some way. I don't believe that he has the discipline or the determination to do that.
No, he's too much. He wants to get back.
He wants to get back and burn it all down.
Right.
And that criticism is his undoing.
Well, maybe. See, that again, I
Yeah.
go back to the weakness of Biden. Just, I mean, we could have a very backward-looking, nasty campaign that ends up with Trump being in the White House, and then who knows? Because it's going to be a jihad against anyone who is mean to him.
Oh, well, yeah, and it's going to be a jihad from the left. Anybody who voted for him.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be a nasty, nasty campaign.
Did you see this? Did you see this? He doesn't tweet, but he on whatever Truth Social.
Yeah,
he was praising BLM.
yeah. Nora Rothman has an interesting article in the National Review right now, basically criticizing that. That makes absolutely no sense. And the byline is rationality plays no role in a process defined by negative partisanship.
Yeah.
And the whole Black Lives Matter, one of their members, I guess, endorsed Trump, said the Democrats had lost us, and Trump came out with a big old tweet and Truth Social, praising the endorsement, and it goes against everything the grassroots
so
folks,
bizarre,
believe.
Yeah. Well,
but it's stuff like that's going to make people question him.
This goes back to.
Will it make a dent? No, I don't think so.
I don't think so because people have. I mean, he's not a conservative.
No.
So anybody who's conservative who thinks Trump's conservative, you're wrong.
No, he's a populist.
Trump is about Trump.
Yeah.
And so, and the base of his support is not conservative; it is sycophant. It is the sycophant party.
The sycophant party. It definitely is the power of personality to placate even the most partisan people. How you like that?
Yeah.
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 Well, nice
So,
little alliteration.
Speaking of
Thank
McCarthy,
you.
there's now a question. So the deadline for filing in California is December 8th. And so he's got to make a decision whether he's going to run for re-election or not. Or if he even stays, like if he leaves now.
You think?
There's news out of Washington that he's seriously looking at it.
And what? So you think he's just going to bail and go make money?
Maybe.
I mean, that wouldn't be a bad thing.
Look, he's super unhappy, which he should be.
He should be.
Especially with, you see the Scott Perry, the chairman of the Freedom Caucus, said, well, we're not going to be able to cut spending. So we'll just go with the number that McCarthy negotiated during the last debt ceiling deal. It's like, are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
Not debt ceiling, it's CR. It's like the very thing that but they didn't. That's the problem.
No,
they didn't do it for the spending. They did it for.
Oh, they
for
did
the,
it because
the
Matt
clicks.
Gaetz is
Gaetz is
you
an
want to talk
idiot.
about a sycophant? There you go.
Well,
I mean, it's when it's all personal, when it's all about personal animus and revenge.
but it's
nothing
more than that.
good. Nothing good
I
comes
thought
from
Rich
that.
Tao nailed it last week when he said, "It's just difficult to wrap your brain around," as I'm paraphrasing, the idea that people run for Congress not as a stepping stone to run for the Senate or for something else, but basically as a stepping stone to go get a big fat contract on TV or to do some big social media push. They're using being a congressman is now a tool to get clicks, which is insane. Something. I don't know. I don't know what we have to do, but we've got to fix the incentives.
Well, it's follow the money, right?
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
I mean, a lot of the speaker fight had nothing to do with policy. It had
Okay,
everything
so-
to do with clicks, which is money, and personal animals.
So how about this for a theory or for a reform? You know that I'm big on expanding the House.
Yes.
The districts are way too big. 700 and plus
Yes.
thousand people, way too much for one person. So let's double the size of Congress at least. Make it 350,000 people at tops per district. And
So
let's
870 Congress.
So 800 and, let's see, 435. Yeah, 870. Right. 870. Perfect. 870 congressmen. and let's
Where
pay
would
them.
you put them all?
I don't know. I don't care.
They'd have to bunk.
Look, we can get rid of. I mean, there's like Department of Commerce, Department of Education. There's a bunch of departments that don't need to be as big as they are. There's plenty of office space.
Plenty of office space.
Put them in there.
And plus, it's D.C. Nobody's going to the
I mean,
office
Department of
anymore
Transportation
anyway.
has a massive building right down the street from the Rayburn building. 870 members of Congress, and pay them all $1 million a year.
You get the best and the brightest running. wouldn't you?
I mean, it takes away the outside influence, right? The need to, I got to go make money. I got to go do, I mean, I think,
because you still are only making $134,000 as a congressman. That hasn't really changed.
well, it's actually more than that.
Is it more than that now?
It's about 175.
Okay. Well, I mean, 175, 134. I mean, it was 134 forever.
Yeah, I think it's about
Which is
175.
why that number's stuck in my head because they can never get beyond it.
Right.
And so you're either rich going in,
Let's say that. Okay.
or you're
let's
in a
just round
safe
it.
district.
It's
You don't
200.
have to worry about anything
Right.
forever.
So it's 200. There's a lot of people who go to Congress and take a pay cut.
Oh,
Now 200 is a lot of money. Yeah, I'm not going to, but there's a lot of people who wouldn't do it for 200.
yeah.
But they might do it for $1 million, and we could get higher quality people.
Oh, you certainly could.
I
Or
think
or
absolutely
you could
higher
get a
quality.
lot of bottom feeders making a lot of money.
I actually think that if you're,
I mean,
if
the
you're
law
at
of
that level,
averages
yeah,
in
I mean, it
terms of
just
870
definitely
people.
definitely would be an improvement.
Yeah.
Because there would be more. There's more incentive. The incentives are better, so you get better people. I really believe that.
And then how would you restructure the work? You'd have to restructure the work. You'd have to make it less about. You'd have to reverse the workflow. You'd have to make it about being, at the Congress doing the work versus what they do now, which is they're there for a day and a half and then they leave and then they shove. It's one of the reasons why nothing gets done, is because they have this shortened work week. It barely exists. They gavel in about noon on Tuesday, if that, and then they gavel out Thursday afternoon about 3:00, and they don't get anything done.
Yeah, I do agree that.
I mean, what happened during the whole Republican Revolution in 1994 was a good thing for the country, a good thing for the Congress overall. But when they shortened the work week and they drove everybody out of Washington, the budget issues we're having, the appropriations issues we're having, the work issues we're having became more acute. And we haven't really had a real budget in 20 years?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and so when people were there and they were living in D.C. and they were doing the work, they had to do the work, and they had to do the work next to their Democratic, counterparts or Republican counterparts, because their kids went to school together and they were, they went to the same church or whatever. Things moved. Things got done.
Yeah. So I agree that the way
some of those things
be,
would have to happen.
It's going to be difficult to make it so that people spend more time. With air travel the way it is nowadays, it's so easy to get back to the district, and I think people need to get back to the district. But
they're trying to expand direct flights to
what they
D.C.
need to
from
do-
every nook and cranny.
What they need to do is they need to do at least 4-day work weeks, and then take more time in full weeks off to be in the district.
Yeah.
Not just only in the district like Fridays and Mondays and the weekend, but whole weeks.
Well, and everyone always complains that, I need the 4-day work week or the smaller two-day work weeks. I have to get home to my family. And it's like, well, back in the day, and people kind of criticized back in the day the way things were, you brought your family to D.C.
Yeah.
if you had a young family.
And guess what?
Or you were older and you ran for Congress because that was
Your
you
family was
raised
up.
your family and
Right.
everything else, and you were going to
And
do
guess
the work.
what? If you're paying
because
$1
you were
million-
there for 5 days.
If you're paying $1 million a year, they can afford 2 households.
or just
moving
one.
to D.C.
or just moving to D.C.
Yeah. All right, I think we solved it. 870 members, pay them $1 million a piece, and cut the staff down a little bit. They don't need to have this big a staff if they've got half the
You
constituency.
really don't need the staff in D.C. like you have it. I mean, most of that staff could be back in the district.
Well, you want to talk about reform? I would
Yeah.
say you'd make it a requirement that you have more people in the district office than you do in the D.C. office.
yeah, and congressmen, women who are effective, do that.
Yeah.
they might have their chief of staff, a couple LCs in the DC office, a scheduler, but they run a thin show in the DC office, and all their people are back in the district working for constituents, being out in the community.
I mean, that's the purpose.
Those are the ones who actually are more successful.
That's why we need to get fewer people per congressman.
Yeah.
We need more members of Congress. So.
Well, I mean,
you
can start lobbying for it.
Okay.
Well, I've cut an ad.
Trying. Okay, I'll cut an ad.
I mean, what would that take, though? I mean, what would that take? I mean,
just an act of Congress.
Just an act of Congress expanding it.
They did it,
and it hasn't been expanded since the 30s.
Yeah, but it was a bill passed in the late 20s, and it happened. It was all implemented after the census in 1930.
Yeah. That's amazing.
That is crazy.
Yes, that's amazing. We've
How
had the
much
same
has
amount
changed.
of, I mean, the Senate is static because the Senate is static, but the fact that so much has changed and we still have the same amount of Congress people.
It's insane.
That does need reform.
100%.
I don't know if you need to double it, but
I think you should.
I mean, even if it went up by a third.
Long. It's been so long. Doubling may not even be enough.
Yeah.
But I'll take a double.
Double and pay them more.
Yep.
What if you doubled and paid them, just $500,000? Even that would make a dent.
Yeah, that would help. I still think.
I mean, I just think the public is not ready to pay their Congress people $1 million.
Well, maybe not.
The public sentiment.
Well, no, because they never. I mean,
because the perception is they do nothing.
Well, in some cases they don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Congress men and women who are in very, very safe districts and they've been there forever, they don't.
Some don't.
They really don't do any work.
They coast.
They go. They do their votes and they go back and they bring home the bacon when they can and tout their votes and they don't have to do anything.
Yeah,
it's kind of a sad state of affairs. Certainly, by expanding it, you would blow that up.
Yeah,
completely.
Well, I think it just
you would create more competitive districts.
Yes, and that's the other thing is that we would have. I feel like we'd have more maneuverability in making more competitive districts.
Yeah,
because it just doesn't make any sense to have districts that are R plus 30 or D plus 40.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, safe.
Yeah,
ultra safe.
Dumb. So McCarthy might be leaving.
And there's
a bunch of people.
A bunch of Democrats have announced they're leaving, about 30 of them.
Yeah, I read somewhere that as of right now, this is the largest number of announced retirements or leaving to run for a different office, in 30 years. And we're not even into next year yet. And a lot of it, a lot of retirement announcements happen after the holidays.
Yeah.
So we could see a lot more.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them.
No, why would you want to keep banging your head against the wall and you ran for Congress to do something and you've had your time there and the place is dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And it's vitriolic. And certainly this last go around for the speakership showed just how pathetic and vitriolic it can be. Because it wasn't based on any sort of principle.
Yeah. I mean, there's a good question to ask whether it would be less vitriolic if it was double the size, but I'm willing to take that chance.
You might see more fisticuffs on
I don't know.
on
I'm
the
willing
House
to take
floor.
the chance. Why not? Again, if we were paying real money, it would definitely change the makeup.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, I agree with you there. I think members of Congress, knowing what the ones who do work, which is a good majority of them, what they do, and the stress that they do have, and the time that they have to take away from their families. Yeah, for what they get paid, it's not worth it.
It is.
It's not worth it.
No, it's not, and we don't get we get less.
I think it's just a reform of doubling their pay and expanding the work week itself would do wonders, even in the short term.
Yeah, because we can't.
Yeah.
I mean,
those things we can do tomorrow.
Let's see, it's 2023 going into 20. So it's going to take a few years for us to get, because what the goal would be is to get this thing passed before 2030.
Yeah.
So that that would be 100 years.
Imagine that.
Holy fuck. Well, that's what we should do. The 100-year anniversary of the last time we expanded the house. We expand the house.
Right.
Let's do it. 100, let's see, 870 by 100.
Expand the House initiative, brought to you by Sean Noble.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
that's all good.
All right. So, other news, we lost a giant in the foreign policy space with the death of Henry Kissinger.
Yeah, did you ever have the opportunity to meet him?
I didn't get a chance to meet him.
I had the opportunity to see him speak several times.
Yeah, I have heard him
that
speak.
was always in his much younger years, when I was much younger, and in DC, and that was always interesting.
Yeah.
Lot of different opinions coming out over the last
Strong
24
opinions.
hours. Strong opinions,
Strong
one way or
opinions.
the other.
Yeah.
From the left and the right.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, no one could name a Secretary of State that has had as much impact or is as well known across the world than Henry Kissinger.
Sure.
I mean, he was an institution, and he had so much influence before he was Secretary of State and especially after.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd be the Secretary of State for 2 different presidents and then have the kind of influence that he had for decades after that.
Oh, with every president.
Yeah.
With every president. And he was, very much, you have to think, a realist in terms of what can be done in foreign policy. There's a lot of criticism with how he handled Vietnam coming out, how he handled China. It's interesting to read all the perspectives, having been just a young man or even a child during much of his tenure. And then much of his impact on the world stage we're still feeling, certainly with the rise of China.
Correct.
I mean, one of the first statements that I read this morning was, the Chairman Xi came out with a statement praising Henry Kissinger.
This is the way we should have our relationship the way that he wanted us to.
Yeah, as a dear, dear friend.
Yeah.
And yet they're our largest adversary now in the world stage. So,
Well, this
kind
is
of the irony of ironies.
yeah, and this guy, he was legit in the sense that so his family escaped the Nazis.
Yeah.
From Bavaria, I think in Germany, right?
Yeah.
And then he became a U.S. citizen in 1943 and immediately went into the U.S. Army and worked in the intelligence and was part of exposing and hunting down Gestapo, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So he had a visceral understanding of the dangers that face us in the world and the dangers of dictatorships and fascism and totalitarianism and communism and socialism, and was a very clear voice in U.S. foreign policy.
Yeah.
And he'll be missed.
100 years.
100 years old. It's
he was
amazing.
just at a symposium at the Hoover Institution just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
I think. And I was like, wow, he was at 99 at that point and still going, still, very much engaged, and clear thinking, kind of creates a contrast to our current president.
Yeah.
Which Obama's doctor, who's now a congressman, Sonny Jackson, had an article just recently saying that cognitively it's going to get worse.
Wait,
for
wasn't Ronnie Jackson
Ronnie Jackson
Trump's doctor?
and Obama's?
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
I say Sonny, Ronnie,
Ronnie Jackson.
it's going to get worse.
Well,
And contrast that with somebody like Kissinger, who up until most recently was still cognitively pretty strong.
yeah. Really impressive.
Yeah.
Well, on that note,
Well, on that note,
R.I.P. Henry Kissinger.
we're going to be live tomorrow doing our
Yes.
podcast from ASU.
Right. So listen in. You'll get a live version of the show for the first time. This is
Yeah.
our first live show. And when I say live, it's not we're going to not broadcast it live, or will they? be streaming it?
They will be streaming it.
Oh, okay. But it will be with an audience. There'll be some Q&A. So the format may feel a little different if you're listening to that one. But it should be a lot of fun.
It should be a lot of fun tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Until then.
Until then.
All
Thank
right,
you for
thanks,
listening.
everybody.
God
Take
bless.
care.